How we doing, everyone? Nick Filato with Big Blue View here to break down the Giants' first new signing of the 2024 free agent cycle, offensive guard Jon Runyan of the Green Bay Packers, a sixth-round pick in 2020. Joe Schoen rightfully prioritized the offensive line and signed Runyan to a three-year, $30 million deal with $17 million guaranteed. It's about $10 million a year, if we do math there. This news broke 5 minutes after it was announced that Saquon Barkley had signed with the Philadelphia Eagles on a three-year, $37.75 million contract that could be worth up to $46.75 and includes $26 million fully guaranteed at signing. Barkley now beats the franchise tag number and has a maximum average per year salary of $15.83 million, which would be second highest for any running back in NFL history. Good for Saquon. Get your bag. We'll see you twice a year. Within 2 hours, Joe Schoen signed a familiar face to himself and Brian Daboll in Devin Singletary at a fraction of Barkley's price. He is the former running back for the Buffalo Bills and the Houston Texans last season. Singletary signed with an average annual value of $5.5 million. It's safe to say that Schoen wasn't going to invest big money at the running back position, even for the face of the franchise, a guy named Saquon Barkley. Instead, he invested in a decade-long plagued offensive line unit that the previous general manager attempted to overhaul, but ultimately failed. Look, I love the idea of investing in the trenches, but who is Jon Runyan Jr.? How effective is he as a player, and is he worth $10 million a year? Now, let's remember, the cap is going up, and the middle class is going to earn more. I'm all for that. But is Jon Runyan Jr. a part of that middle class of players? We'll investigate that. He is the son of Jon Runyan, former Philadelphia Eagles offensive tackle and best friend of Michael Strahan.
He shut my feet down, gave me the little wiggle, and got my feet stopped, and I was standing straight up, and buried his head in my chest and took me for a ride.
I've watched several games of Jon Runyan Jr. at this point from the 2023 season, and I'll give my opinion throughout the video. But first, let's roll through some plays as I discuss my thoughts and some pertinent statistics on Jon Runyan Jr. Mind you, Runyan Jr. is number 76, and he is playing right guard in all of these snaps. So there's a lot of talk about Runyan Jr. just being Mark Lewinsky 2.0. The 26-year-old former Packer is an upgrade over Lewinsky. But this signing does not exactly inspire me, right? Like, I love that he has over 1,500 snaps at both guard positions. I think that's really valuable for versatility. He's been durable through much of his career, and he's a heady, aware offensive lineman. Now, for some statistics, Runyan has allowed 64 pressures in his career and surrendered 7 sacks. He allowed 22 pressures and 2 sacks last season while committing 6 penalties. He's committed 8 in his career. So he's not an overly penalized player. From what I noticed, a lot of the penalties that he endured through the 2023 season was somebody slipping around the side of him. A lot of the times while he was pulling, him noticing it last second and then him just sticking his hand out and getting just a piece of the cloth around the collar, and he pulled him down to the ground. That happened about 3 times, I think, from what I saw. So a lot of those plays were when he was getting off the line of scrimmage as a run blocker and kicking out into space. Here is his mock draftable chart. And here is his relative athletic score. Let's go through some of his ability as a run blocker. Like Rex Ryan, I appreciate Runyan's footwork. He's light on his feet, takes good angles of approach in the run game, and does a sound job staying tight to reach block nose tackles from his guard spot, which is no easy feat. He played predominantly in a zone rushing system under Matt LaFleur. His ability to locate the outer portion of a defender that's a gap, sometimes a gap and a half away from him on backside blocks is valuable and possible because on these angle blocks, he fires off the ball low, initiates contact with good hand placement while using the proper steps to cut off the defender's avenue of approach to the ball carrier. I'll show you some plays like this right here. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. This is going to be Jon Runyan. Jon Runyan is going to reach this one technique. Now, it's a one technique shaded to his side, mind you. But watch him do this. Fires off the ball low, makes contact right in the midpoint of number 98. And you're going to watch how he gets assisted, but he's able to get his hips over to the play side and just totally cut off the angle of number 98. Now, the play kind of blew up, but you're going to see something similar on this play as well. This is to the play side, right? He's going to reach the 4-eye shade. He's going to take the steps over and watch the feet, watch the feet, watch the steer, watch the steer. And that's Aaron Donald we're talking about right there. So that's not an easy assignment on this combo block where he's able to allow number 60 to climb, and hopefully Aaron Jones can pick up a couple extra yards. So that is a well-executed block right there, well-executed reach block. Remember, this is a predominant zone system that we're talking about. We're talking about a lot of reach blocks where everybody is blocking on the offensive line as a unit, stepping in one direction. And it is that core strength and coordination that allows him to stay balanced while he's on the move and while he's engaged and when he's trying to swivel his hips around the side of his assignment to create that seal to allow his ball carrier to maximize the yards that are in front of him. His overall agility and ability to dip low and be flexible on an angle also assist him in all of those tasks as well. Runyan Jr., he's a functional athlete who played offensive tackle at Michigan. So, he was used to being on an island, at least to some degree, right? He frames his blocks well and is mobile enough to execute different assignments. I wish his hands were more commanding. This is a run blocker and a pass protector. I just don't think he really controls the block at the point of attack well with his hands. And honestly, his power leaves some to be desired. He's more of one of those stalemate type of blockers. He's not going to drive through many defensive linemen, but he can get in their way enough to allow the running back to kind of squirm away. He does work combo blocks pretty well, though. I would say adequately. And he uses the correct timing to climb up to the second level. His general location skills in space, I would say they're average. When he did execute GT counter or other pulling power gap plays, like I was mentioning before, his location skills on the kick out, it was pretty inconsistent. He fires out of his stance and orients quickly, which I do appreciate, and it's a testament to his athletic ability. But a few different contained defenders have eluded his block, and they, contained the run. And that's not necessarily what you want when you're the kick out blocker. As you'll see throughout this video, I don't love how Runyan Jr. sustains and finishes blocks. Once engaged with a defender, his center of gravity rises and defenders seem to slip off his blocks way too easily. It's easy for my dumbass to say that an NFL player must hold their block a little longer to allow the play to develop. I get it's easier said than done, but it was an unfortunate reality throughout his tape. I wanted to see more successful play side blocks, reach or base. I don't want to make it seem like he's this terrible run blocker because he isn't. He's a functional run blocker. He's just not a Mike Onwenu or a Robert Hunt. To be honest, I'm not sure there's probably a lot of Packer fans out there who are upset that Jon Runyan has left. Nevertheless, he displayed positive traits as a pass protector. I wouldn't say he's an elite pass protector or anything of that means, but you can see on this play against Eric Armstead, there's a couple plays against Eric Armstead coming up here where he's going to engage Eric Armstead. Eric Armstead's going to try to swim and then try to work back to the inside. And you can see how Jon Runyan puts that foot in the ground, that outside foot, and he feels that Eric Armstead's trying to work the inside swim. So he just washes him right down into the center to keep the pocket intact and allow Jordan Love to almost throw a touchdown pass. And then on this play, you're going to see him hand fight a little bit, and then he's going to get underneath Eric Armstead and lift Eric Armstead up. You see that? Kind of slow him down. Now, Eric Armstead ended up getting to the half man, which is an issue with Jon Runyan sometimes, but he does well to frame his blocks initially. My problem with Jon Runyan, as I'll go through some of these clips here, is power sometimes. Like, I don't think he has a bad anchor, but when the hand fighting is initiated, and if Jon Runyan allows that center of gravity to rise, you're going to have some problems. And that's stuff that you kind of see pop up as a pass protector. Here you see a nice double swipe move from Eric Armstead. Runyan kind of gets back on his toes. Look, there's no way Runyan's going to be able to execute any power in this position. You need to resync your hips, come to balance to get underneath Eric Armstead, because right now you can get bowled through. So Runyan Jr. on this play is not in a good position, but you can see how he just sits right back down, gets those feet planted in the ground, and then goes underneath after that counter move by Eric Armstead to try and slow right there. You see how those arms are underneath to try to slow Eric Armstead down and not allow Eric Armstead to win through the half man, because he was in a compromised, Jon Runyan Jr., that is, was in a compromised position before all of this. So I appreciated that he was able to hold off and allow Jordan Love to find Jaden Reed down the field. Now in this play, you're going to see something similar. Stalemates him. That's a solid play right there by Jon Runyan Jr. Now his hands are a little wide. And this is something that I want to pay attention to. You can see how that punch is anticipated, right? Hands are a little wide. Punch kind of comes in, and Eric Armstead's going to anticipate that, as you'll see here shortly. Eric Armstead, Chris Jones, Aaron Donald, all these players, the really good pass rushers, found a way to anticipate Jon Runyan Jr.'s punch. That's something that he might need to work on, that, and obviously keeping the center of gravity down a bit as we watch who's that Dre Greenlaw return this and get tackled ultimately by a few Green Bay Packers. But on this play, there's another play where you just see active feet. Watch those feet This is what I like. You see those feet, they're active the entire time. He gets engaged. His hands are tight here. They're not wide like they were before, right? Tight elbows. He gets engaged and then just watch the feet just mirror number 91. Now, he's not going up against one of the best pass rushers there, but still, that's a really good rep from Jon Runyan Jr. And this is something that we saw often against the Raiders this year. The Packers would put like slide protection towards Max Crosby, and they would have Jon Runyan whenever they came out, the Raiders, that is in this front where there was a 3 down lineman and Max Crosby wide. They would have Jon Runyan help the center out, but the center would take 91, and then you would keep the running back in protection sometimes, and then Runyan would try to get to the edge. And this was a smart play by Runyan because he's protecting Zach Tom, the tackle out there. And you have to when you're going up against a guy like Max Crosby. So he's able to allow that pass to get off. Here we're going to see another play that's solid, but you see how he gets pushed back a little bit. And that's something that concerns a little bit, right? A little bit of concern there. And something we got to keep in mind with Jon Runyan is this is somebody with 5th percentile hand size and 38th percentile arm length. Now, his arm length is over 33 inches, which is solid for a guard, but I did see some edge rushers throughout some of this tape. You're going to see them establish length on Jon Runyan Jr. and use it against him. So just like as a run blocker, his feet typically in good position. You got to like Jon Runyan Jr.'s feet. So he frames the block well, but that doesn't mean he's going to prevent the pass rusher from getting to the half man and then just absolutely throwing the frame out the window, right? On this play, he absorbs the power well. Look, everything's nice and tight. Get low. He's absorbing the contact. Who's in a better position right now? That pass rusher or 76? 76 is in a better position, right? And you can see how the pass rusher tries to work through, and then he resets himself, Jon Runyan Jr., to protect himself and position himself between that pass rusher and Jordan Love. So another good play by Jon Runyan Jr. here. Now, there's a few good plays that I added through this, but they're not all going to be good. You're going to see some rough pass protecting reps from Jon Runyan Jr. here shortly. But here are several more. You can see the readjustment. I love that. See how he just keeps going lower, keeps getting lower, keeps getting lower. You want to hand fight me? Cool. I'm going to reestablish my position, sit back on my hips, and trust my anchor. And again, his anchor is not elite. There are times where he can get bullied into the backfield, as you'll probably see here shortly. But he'll have plays like this too, when he does stay low. And you can see the core strength. This is against Dexter Lawrence, right? You can see this core strength. Dexter Lawrence is trying to work the rip through the outside part of Jon Runyan Jr. This is something we've seen a lot. I'm sure Jon Runyan Jr. is probably grabbing cloth like a madman there. But you know what? Grab away, bro, because you're up against Dexter Lawrence. And you can see how he's not necessarily getting bullied. He's getting pushed back a little bit, but this is Dexter Lawrence. We've seen a lot worse than that, right? And he's able to stand him up eventually. So overall, even though he gets pushed back a bit, I got to say that's a solid rep for Jon Runyan Jr. right there, even though the pocket wasn't necessarily perfect. But now we're going to see some struggles from Jon Runyan Jr. Here's against A'Shawn Robinson, right? A'Shawn Robinson uses that length, keeps Jon Runyan Jr. at bay. You can see that right here, right on the breastplate. And look, there's no pop, there's no power that he can get out of his hands once A'Shawn Robinson uses full length on one arm. One arm is longer than 2 arms, as we know. And then he's able to just kind of crack the seal and then just go right through the outside. Jordan Love gets rid of the football anyways. But you're going to start seeing some of the warts in Jon Runyan Jr.'s game as we watch this. Here is another one of those long winding punches I was talking about. Look, he frames it. He's framed up well. It looks like Arik Armstead's going to the outside, and that punch is just taking a while. It's wide, and you can see how he brings his elbows up. That's a huge anticipatory action for Arik Armstead to take advantage of what Jon Runyan Jr. is doing, right? He's just saying, like, look, I'm about to throw my punch. It's wide. So what does Arik Armstead do? Is he dips this shoulder right here and then sets up the double swipe, lands the double swipe, and then completely separates from Jon Runyan Jr. And you can see how if it wasn't for the running back getting in the way, picking up the blitz off Fred Warner, this is going to be a sack. So you got to clean those things up. Those are little things that we see throughout the tape that can be damning, right? And here we're just going to see Jon Runyan Jr. kind of lose to Aaron Donald. He tries to get chest to chest. Aaron Donald just forklifts him up. There's just kind of that power dynamic I was talking about before. Like, look, he's not somebody who's just going to get thrown around all of the time, but against the better edge rushers, more powerful guys, and these defensive tackles kind of slanting inside or going right into him, he's going to have some problems sometimes. He's getting paid $10 million a year. It's not a ton of money, but it's like in the top 15, I think, at the guard position. And then you can see how Aaron Donald, this is more of just a testament to how great Aaron Donald is, man. Woof. Works so many different moves there to just put our guy into a blender, Jon Runyan Jr. Here we're going to see him kind of lose. See, this is like reminiscent of Mark Lewinsky. Mark Lewinsky was terrible at protecting his edges, something that was rough with him. Here, Jon Runyan Jr. tries to impose his will with a long arm on the one side to combat, I think that's Aleem McNeil's pass rush. Aleem McNeil, very underrated football player, mind you, but it just gives Aleem McNeil an inside angle right into the pocket. And Jon Runyan Jr. needs to bring those feet back and sit back, which like we saw before. Remember when I was like, remember he's tried going inside? I think it was against the Lions too. And Jon Runyan Jr. put himself between Jordan Love and the defender. On this play, that didn't necessarily happen. It almost resulted in a turnover. And here we're going to see another length issue, right? Against 95 of the Panthers. Look, that's not a good sign. No one wants to see that, right? Like, guys, no one wants to see that. Gals, no one. And Jon Runyan Jr. is just getting pushed back. And you can see that there are concerns there with power and with anchor. If he stays low, he can reset himself and it's all good. But when he gets himself into these positions where he doesn't anticipate a certain pass rushing move, that's when defenders will take advantage of his lack of elite anchor, and his center of gravity goes up, as you could see right here. And then he could just get bullied backwards, something that you never want to see. Jordan Love pick up some yards here against number 99 of the Broncos. You can see how it's solid framing at first, right? Gets in, the punch, sloppy. Again, I wish his hands were more commanding, but I also wish they were a little bit more precise as well. It's not just the employment of the punch that can be predictable, but here it's just high, and you can see 99 get underneath the armpit, lift him up, and then, to the credit of Jon Runyan Jr., he resets himself, sinks himself, gets inside, steps inside, matches 99. 99 goes back to the outside, and then he goes back to the inside. Good pass rush move by 99, and Jordan Love is able to get the football off. You know what? Jordan Love kind of impressed me watching a lot of Jon Runyan Jr., if I'm going to be frank with you. There's a lot of times where Jordan Love wasn't put into a great situation, but he was able to find a remedy. Now we're going to see against the Chargers, like Jon Runyan Jr., man, he overset. You can see that extra step to the outside. 1, 2. And now there's that easy path. But you know that, I mean, you likely know that 71 is not going to be in protection with you. You don't have inside help unless A.J. Dillon is tasked to protect your inside. A.J. Dillon looks like he's releasing, and maybe that wasn't coordinated and communicated. It's something I saw also. There was a decent amount of miscommunications in protection throughout the Packers tape. But this is just a bad spot to find yourself in, because that is a wide open angle, and Jon Runyan Jr. needs to do a better job cleaning that up. Here against the Chiefs, look, you're going up against Chris Jones. That's going to happen. And these are the power moves I was talking about, right? Like, just, that's a double swipe. And I'm sure Chris Jones probably saw this punch come. And now this is actually a quicker punch, to his credit. Now he's bringing up that inside hand slowly, right? But then he goes for the punch, and it is anticipated, but it's not nearly as elongated as the ones we saw before. Here against Eric Armstead, I wanted to slow this down a little bit. You're going to see that elongated double swipe right around. This is the one that we broke down before, but I wanted to re-show it. Here's another one against Aaron Donald where it goes right through the outside. Luckily, 71 was in position there. Against the Giants, something I like. Now, you could see this twist, and maybe it was easily anticipated by Jon Runyan Jr., but look how effortless Jon Runyan Jr. passes this twist off. Jihad Ward is not really striking fear into a lot of people. He's gonna slant inside, and then you can just see 76 doesn't even react to the slant. Trusts that the center is going to be there, and he just assumes the responsibility of Bobby Okereke, and Okereke is eliminated. Now, it's not like that all the time, but overall, throughout his film, I would say he is a very intelligent player. He is a player who is in position very often, and he doesn't really allow himself to get beat on twists unless it's something where one of his teammates, whether it be Zach Tom or the center, gets in his way from actually passing it off. And the transition sometimes looks like it's his fault, but he's typically on assignment, which I appreciate. But the power moves, little stutter, goes for the one-handed punch. Double swipes. He's a struggling man with the double swipes, ladies and gentlemen. Now we're going to get Chris Jones again. And I like this. So against the Chiefs, going through some of that tape, there were times where he would jump set. This is a jump set. A jump set is more of a run blocking type of set where you're an offensive lineman. You're going to dictate to the defender. Now, a lot of pass protection, because a jump set is a pass protection move. A lot of pass protection, do a 45-degree set. Sometimes you do the vertical set, which is gain much more depth into the pocket. A jump set is much more like, I want to get on you. Now, I can't get down the field or drive you down the field because then I'll get ineligible man downfield, which Giant fans know all too well, right? But on this one, you can see how he jumps outside and then gets his hands directly on Chris Jones. And he beats Chris Jones to the punch. And you can see there's some pop there, right? Some pop. And I love seeing that, right? Because he's dictating to a much superior player. That's what I want to see. That's confidence. I'm not sure if the coaches told him to do this or not, but it's something I saw on tape and I did appreciate. Now you're going to see, I'm not sure exactly who that defender is, but solid rep overall. Gets both of his hands inside. The defender tries to break the wrists, as they say. Does, but sit back, absorb, reestablish. Good rep. You're going to see something similar on that play as well. Now we're going to get a twist that doesn't go well. And this is kind of what I was talking about, right? Like this is a well-executed twist, goes through the B gap. Jon Runyan is late here, but you could see how the end man on the line of scrimmage just, it's a difficult path for Jon Runyan to get unless Jon Runyan just lets his assignment right now run right through. But he needs to ensure that transition happens. But when you tackle vertical sets like Zach Tom is doing here, the transition naturally is going to take a little bit longer because number 58 had this wide stance. I think that's Jordan Hicks, right? And the linebacker. You had the tight end just kind of chipping, but you could see how Zach Tom is at such a depth right now where Jon Runyan Jr. needs to pass off 91 before assuming 58, and this doesn't go nearly as well. Now, Jordan Love gets it off. It's almost completed, but that's one of the twists that came up on film that a lot of people will watch and be like, oh, that's on Jon Runyan Jr. You know what? Jon Runyan Jr., he recognizes what's happening right now. You can see him making eye contact. He just needs to ensure that the transition is there, and it was not there. So that happens sometimes, right? Now we're going to go to the Falcons. Here we're going to see another just smooth twist handled, but unfortunately, Arnold Ebiketie does an inside spin move, and our guy Jon Runyan Jr. runs into it and hurts his elbow. But you could see he passes 53 to the center, and then 97, he's going to assume it, but this is a pirate stunt. Oh, pirate stunts. We're going to see some of those with Shane Bowen, ladies and gentlemen, and it ends up just being an incomplete pass. But he was there for the twist just in general, but wasn't necessarily ready for Arnold Ebiketie to spin inside. So make of that what you will. Look, he had to do what he has to do. He's 2 versus 1 at this point. 71, this is a very good play by Detroit. 71 is going to have the nose tackle. But the nose tackle slants to 70. 71 knows 70 doesn't have an assignment unless somebody blitzes from that side. So he passes him off. And now you could see how Jon Runyan Jr. is 2 versus 1, terrible position to be in, gets the one and then quickly transitions off. That's impressive. He at least put his center into a position where it was close that he could handle him. But Aiden Hutchinson just runs right by, nails Jordan Love. Jordan Love does a fantastic job getting rid of the football and getting the football down to the 1 yard line. Here's another twist. You can see this is an effortless one. Contact. I'm going to ride you right to Zach Tom. Eyes on Aiden Hutchinson. Get to Aiden Hutchinson. Sit back. Now it ends up being a sack, but the transition is there. But again, it goes to the anchor sometimes. You can see how that anchor, he gets pushed back. You can see the hands are even on Aiden Hutchinson. It just doesn't really matter because Aiden Hutchinson just bullies his way through the player. And here's another one where Jon Runyan Jr. is going to handle it, take Max Crosby, football gets out. Now I want to go back to the beginning. We'll run through some of the plays. I want to give my overall thoughts on Jon Runyan Jr. Look, he is a player in pass protection where he can be a bit impatient, where he's throwing his punch, as we saw a little bit early. Sometimes it can be anticipated, as we said, but I don't think of him as a player who necessarily leans a ton, right? Like we see with Evan Neal, like his jump set, sometimes he can lean because that's the natural inclination when you are jump setting somebody. But Runyan Jr., he plays with his feet under him, right? Like he'll be in position to execute his blocks, but his overall power, pop, hand fighting, and overall leverage when he doesn't keep that center of gravity low, all of that can improve. And on that point, like anybody, when he stays low, he's pretty effective, right? As you saw through some of these clips, and that's as a run blocker and as a pass blocker. He does have solid core strength, which I think he really, when he's on those angle blocks, which he was a lot in his own rushing team, allows him to steer and control the block a little bit better, right? I think he understands the fundamentals of absorbing contact and mitigating rushers. He's just not the most powerful guy out there. He just needs to really work on that center of gravity and also sustaining the blocks, man. Like that's my big thing as a run blocker. You need to do a better job sustaining. I do like the processing, the awareness. He's not fooled often by the twist, like I said. Combo run blocks, gets off, transitions well, quick eyes up to the second level. He moves, I would say, adequately in space. Not the best, specifically with the locating skills. I think he could do a better job. But overall, man, he's a fundamentally sound offensive lineman, specifically offensive guard with proper footwork. And I think he's a starter in the league. He has more experience running the zone system. Like I said, he's capable with reach and scoop blocks. Combo is fine. Does well to stay balanced when he's blocking on the move. However, he doesn't really create a lot of space in the run game. It's a problem, right? He's not very powerful. His ability to sustain and finish blocks, it's suboptimal, which I do not like. But as the play progresses, that center of gravity rises. I know I've said it a couple times here, but as it rises, defenders find a way off his block, and that needs to be rectified. It just happened too frequently on tape. Smart pass protector, not a liability. Active eyes, stays balanced, solid athlete, all that, right? But those quick power moves, they give him trouble. And that punch, it can be anticipated, and it's not necessarily too authoritative. But Runyan would have likely been the best offensive guard on the Giants last season, right? He or Justin Pugh. I wish, I think that could be rationally debated. I do, him or Justin Pugh as the best guard, which is not great. I know Runyan Jr. is still young and there's still room to grow. You know, I kind of wish the Giants were going to sign someone with a much larger gap of talent between Jon Runyan Jr. and Justin Pugh. To me, overall, it's not an exciting addition for Jon Runyan Jr. I don't think he's a bad player necessarily, but again, I think I referenced this a little bit earlier. I don't think there's many Packer fans that are going to cry that he is no longer there starting on their offensive line. He'll slightly upgrade the offensive line, but I don't think he's necessarily a difference-making type of player. But he's valuable depth at a somewhat reasonable price with the cap inflating as much as it has, right? Who can come in and who can help stabilize either guard position, which gives you flexibility. So not the most exciting, but the Giants went and traded for freaking Brian Burns Jr., right? Like that was wildly exciting, like so cool. So that really helped invigorate the day. But I wanted to thank everybody for tuning in to the Big Blue View YouTube page. Please, if you have not done so already, like and subscribe this podcast wherever you get podcasts and this YouTube handle. That would be absolutely lovely. Hope you guys enjoyed this little impromptu breakdown. Watched a ton of film today. I got a ton more film to watch as well, so it should be a lot of fun. I'm Nick Filato, signing off. Take care. Peace.